MTV Shuga Mashariki Season 1, it's finally complete. All the episodes are out, and here we are. Let's talk about it. If I was to give this show out of 5, I'll give this a 4.5 out of 5. This is one of the best young adult shows from Africa today, as of now. Yeah, hands down. Fantastic visuals, fantastic editing, fantastic performances, just a fantastic looking show. Okay, that's why I consider this to be one of the best young adult show in Africa today, because this looks so good and it's such a good story. Episode 8 gave me what I was worried about. Episode 8, yes, some things that I was worried about earlier are still here and they're very strong, but episode 8 gave me that one thing that I was praying that they try to do. If you know Zodiac, if you know, you know. But I like what they did with that particular episode. I was like, yes, this pays off perfectly. But I want us to start to talk about the actors, because we have a lot of good actors, very young actors. We have, number one, you have Nyakobi. These are according to the credits. I just took a screenshot of the credits. So we have Nyakobi, who is played by Sarah Wanjiru. We have Salaton Basil Mungai. We have Eric Matthew Ngoto. Dude, what? The scenes with this guy. Bro, that's what I'm saying. The direction in this movie, and the writing, not the core concept of the story, because there's nothing new here, but the writing, the way the directors and the writers for each episode took circumstances and made them interesting is amazing. Anyway, I was talking about Matthew Ngoto, yeah? He plays Eric. There's Odek, played by Wilson Muchemi. There's Wendo, played by Fatuma Gichuru. There's Asha, played by Julie Brenda Nyambura. There's Dada, played by Frida Mumbe. There's Hanifa, played by Miriam Bishar. There's Zena, played by Makena Kahuha. Then we have more actors. They're supposed to have, yes, the supporting cast. These are the people that popped up, because strangely enough, this show has characters that I was like, these people cannot be actors. Hanifa's grandmother, Nyokabi's family. Nyokabi and Erica are brother, sister. So their family, their mom and their dad, very, very believable. The aunt, Salaton's aunt and uncle, very, very believable. They look so realistic that you'll be forgiven to think they are not actors. They're just normal people who are called to come and perform, which goes into the costume design. I'll get back to that. So you also have Akina. Now the supporting, you have Julie, who is S.C. Gitonga. You have Noni, who is Renegi Chuki. You have Dimungai Muika, who was talking about Nyakobi's father. Arabron Osai, I think. Yeah, he is a veteran actor, very good with this performance as the dean. Most realistic. I was like, yeah, that's how deans behave. Anyway, there's Mugami Linda Ngendo, there's Dr. Sidi, who is Faith Kibati, there's Omar Jonathan Chapuis, there's Sharon Rita Gitau, there's Lady Love, Jackie Matubia, there's Coach Kirumburu Nganga, there's Nurse Alison Nyamwira, there's Investigating Officer Dennis Owor Ochieng, there's Hanifa's double Lona Lemi. Oh, the bicycle, the bike rides, Okay, interesting. There's now the Rachels. The Rachels are this group of CU students. They are all holy and all good. Never have sex before marriage kind of group. There's Hope Muchoki, there's Loreen Mwembese, there's Taga Chebet. There's now you have the rugby boys. You have Anyimba Gabriel Bahati, Bill Ford, Bill Bullet Muturi. There's Kevin, who is played by Fidesz Tony. There's Geoffrey Gitongo Kimani. There's Charlie Kinyanjuri. So that's the cast, and they did a great job. And apart from the performances, I think one of the things that actually really brought this character to life was their costumes, because if you were to look at a silhouette of Dada, if you were to look at a silhouette of Asha, if you were to look at a silhouette of Wendo, and if you were to look at a silhouette of Nyakobi, they look totally different. you can identify those characters just based on their silhouette. There are smaller details with their hair, with their outfits, with their makeup that makes them extremely unique to who they are, to their personality. And the wardrobe team did a fantastic job. They did a fantastic job with also Hanifa, because Hanifa has a particular look that also serves her character. And you have Asha, who has a distinct look. You know, a person like Zena, she has, because she has a very, very small screen time, but just by looking at how she dresses, you can kind of make out the kind of person that she is. And when they go out, you also see how the costume also plays into who they are. And the casting is fantastic, man, because I think that combination of casting, wardrobe, and then direction just makes these people feel like people, feel real, feel believable. Apart from Hasha and Anifa, those are the two people that I had a problem with. Not their performance, not the actors who were performing, because I thought they did a lot with the little that they were given. Because those characters are not given, and Omar, they're not given enough. They're given very little to work with, but they do a lot with that. And I think that also goes to the direction. Now, to start from the top, the opening title card, MTV Shuga Mashariki, fantastic. Why? Because they use these luminous pink lines from the expressway to the city, and then they reveal the title card. I thought that was cool. And then those lines are also used for the overlays. When the overlays pop up, maybe it's a phone message or whatever, those pink lines are used to contain those overlays. And then pink is generally used for the whole show, because this is a female-centric kind of show. And so pink is used it's used almost everywhere. It's just everywhere, somewhere, either in the background or with the names. It's just somewhere. Pink is always somewhere in the graphics. So I thought that was pretty cool. The title card was pretty awesome. The next thing that I liked, outside now the production, the performances, was the editing. Yeah, the editing in this is a very punchy show. And I appreciated that, because it just moves. You don't feel, yes, you have some emotional moments that slow down, but generally it just clicks, except for the last 10 minutes of episode 5. There's a lot of chunk that was removed from that particular episode, because the beginning up to how many minutes? Up to around the 12, 13 minutes, everything was flowing, everything was okay. Actually, after Asha prepares to go to see a movie, and you see a shot of popcorns, after that, I don't know, up to the end, up to the protest, I don't know what happened there. There are things that were removed, because when that protest happens, I don't understand, how was it set up? How it comes that these people, you move from a scene where Odek is being punched in the face to the next scene, he's out there going like, we support you. And they're all there. You have dudes wearing dresses, you have makeup, a lot of stuff, you have a lot of guys dressed in. How did they get there? Why is Asha walking out of that building with a placard? Was that planned? Because I didn't hear anywhere whereby she was talking about preparing to go and protest or something. At no point did I get to see her go into the office and say, yo, we want to fight for this in order for this to happen with the makeup. She just pops out of the door and she goes like, yeah, she lifts up the banner and then these people appear from nowhere. They were never properly set up. Yes, the event to that was properly set up. We know why she's there. But that idea of having that protest was never set up. It just pops up. That's why I'm saying there's something in episode 5 there are two good chunks. The lead up to Odek getting punched in the face and the lead up to the protest happening. There are good chunks of stories that were removed. But other than that, the editing in this, I know I've met like 5 people who say that the show moves too fast and they needed enough time to get to know these people better. But for me, generally, in terms of watching a show, I want a show that moves like that. The dialogue feels immediate, the interactions feel immediate, you never feel bored. I watched each episode separately weekly, and then I binged everything. I binged all the episodes at once. So I love how it's paced. I love how it's edited. It's very punchy. I like what the directors did with the story in terms of revealing some things and working some events to lead to something else. I don't want to spoil it for people if you've not seen it, but yeah, I'll just say Eric is a fantastic character. Yeah, Nyakobi, I love where they took her at the end. Whatever they did with her, this actress, what's her name? Sarah Wanjiru, fantastic. You know, her face is the goody two-shoe Christian CU leader. But then there's this other freaky side. And then there's this other really dark side. Like there's a moment where she comes from the police and then her friends are like, dude, you can't go taking revenge because of what the Bible says. Then she turns around and then she just gives them one statement that left me going like, damn. And that's good casting. I thought she was fantastic in this. Asha, I thought was really good in this, but she was not given enough. I would have wanted her to be given a proper arc. Asha, for me, in relation to this particular show, is MTV Staying Alive Foundation writing a character and saying that character has to be there, her motivation has to be this, she has to say this, she has to be the social justice warrior. And then she was planted within the show. Now, I'm not talking about the actor, because the actor does a lot with what she's given. She's given very little, but she does a lot with that particular character to make her feel alive. What do I mean by this character was not given enough? Her character throughout is a social justice warrior. Yeah, she's always fighting about girls. She's always fighting against rape because of what happened to Zena, her best friend. And that makes a lot of sense. But she does not feel like a person. I kept asking myself, apart from this fight apart from Zena, apart from fighting for, their outfits not to be controlled, fighting for people to wear what they want, women to wear what they want, fighting for girls not to be assaulted and raped. Apart from that, if we were to strip that away and strip away the fact that she has a history with Salaton, who is Asha? Because Nyakobi, I know her family, I know her bro. I know what makes Nyakobi tick. I know Eric, I know what makes him tick. I know who else? I know Wendell. I know where she's coming from. I know she has a brother, something bad happens to the I know she's struggling. I know Salaton. I know where Salaton is coming from. It's clearly, you're given Salaton and his history. You understand where he's coming from. You understand what makes him a complex person because he feels like a person. But Asha and Anifa, they're just characters who are just there. They kind of there to just pass a message, especially Asha. She's just there to pass a specific message because every time she speaks, it's like she's passing a message to the audience. It's like she's delivering the message for MTV Staying Alive Foundation. She's like outside this particular show. But again, the actress does a lot to sell that particular character and make that character believable in her expression and then in her timing in terms of delivering line delivery. I think she does a great job. But the material does not give her enough to make her a complex character. Apart from a few episodes in episode 1, I never see her truly happy. She's always brooding and she's always complaining about girls. That she's always challenging people. She does not feel like a person. She does not feel like Odanga. Her interactions are limited to, this has happened, we need to do this, we need to change this, we cannot do this. That's all she's limited to. And I wish there was just something. Okay, I keep saying I wish. I keep saying, I wish. I'm the fan. I'm the football fan who's pointing at the screen and going like, how can you miss that goal? The goal was open. So how would I have done it differently if I was the one who was working on this? I would have made Asha a selfish introvert who is only in the university for one reason and one reason only. Get her grades, pass, get out. She cares only about one person, who is Zena, her best friend. That's all she cares about. And she doesn't care about anything. She doesn't want to be in leadership. She doesn't want the drama of politics. She doesn't want anything else. Her life is just her little space, and her friend Zena. She doesn't want any drama. So after whatever happens to Zena happens to her, she now starts finding herself being sucked into the system because she wants justice, but no one is ready to listen. So she goes into this state of, I have to find justice for my friend because no one cares. So during that process, remember, she does not care. I'm sorry to say this, she doesn't even care about women and their outfit or women and being, she just hyper-focused on what happened to her friend. And she wants to find justice for her friend alone. And then maybe when you get to that moment when they have the debate, that is the moment when now she realizes that the story of Zena is more than just Zena and her. Other people are being affected. Other people, terrible things. In fact, that's debate I would have handled it differently. I would have had the first lady who presents herself get booed, and then we go to Nyakofi, get booed, and then we get to Asha. People keep quiet to listen to her, but she goes like, no, because you've not listened to these two, we have to start again. So we start, and then she goes like, if you boo her again, she's going to come to this person, is going to come to me, and it's going to go back to her because she has to say what she has to say, even when she's my opponent. And so the first person says whatever she has to say about her manifesto and what she's going to do for the school leadership. Nyakobi does her, presents her argument about what she's going to do with the school, and she does a good presentation, and then now it gets to her. But when it gets to her, the first lady and Nyakobi, all of them say, you know what? Yeah, we are fighting for women. We want women in leadership. We want you to stop killing women. But in this case, I've given you my manifesto, but I think the best person to lead is who? Is Asha, which would surprise Asha. Then Nyakobi does the same thing. She gives this huge manifesto, and then she goes like, yes, I'm here to fight for women. I want these things to stop people to stop dying, but I don't think I'm the best leader. It's Asha, because based on just what she has done there, Asha would make the best leader. And then at that moment, she would go like, oh my gosh, I've been fighting for Zena, but this is bigger than Zena, There are a lot of women out there who are being affected. And so now she has to click out of her selfish ways, her own selfish ways of not fighting for anyone else apart from her friend, and start fighting for all these other women, so that it can feel more like an arc and less of a plant that is there to, number one, condition, which is, pass the message, Shuja style. And then number two, that can actually make her feel like a person, feel like everyone else, feel like a human being, not a message puppet. So, yeah, apart from that, Anifa and Omar, why do they exist in this universe? Why? I mean, Omar is very, very important in episode 8 because of what he does that triggers Eric. I get that. And I like what they did with that, setting him up in order for him to attend that particular sport. I don't get the relationship because, again, Anifa is given the same treatment. She does not feel like a person. Yes, the moment that she has a moment with her grandma, I was like, I want to see more of this. Because that moment felt so authentic. I was watching and that lady, I don't know who she is. That lady is amazing because I believed she was who she was playing. Of course, the costume, the set designs, and the lighting actually made that feel more believable, but I believed her. That moment I liked. I was like, give me more of this with Anifa because it feels like it gives that character something more. Because this, and here's the thing about Anifa. Again, make her interesting by giving her a dream. Because with Omar, when Omar kind of proposes, she goes like, oh no, I can't do this right now because there are other things that I want to do. So you're left thinking, what other things? Because they were never defined in the first place. So why can't you have a moment with Hanifa and give her a dream? Like she wants to have the biggest boutique. She wants to be like a Calvin Klein or a Gucci of Kenya. And so you give her a dream. And every time she talks about it, she kind of looks away and goes like, one day I'm going to be like the Victoria's Secrets of Kenya or Calvin Klein of Kenya. And you give her that look. Every time she talks about it, she kind of gets lost in that particular dream. And people talk about how she's committed. Even have her as the person who supplies clothes in the university. She's ever popping, just randomly selling people dresses. Selling dresses to Akina Nyokabi, and Akina, what's her name? Asha, coming to the institution and providing them with the dresses, as she really wants to be the number one fashion brand in the country. So that now when they're having that conversation with Omar, as the audience, you don't have to wonder what she's working on. You clearly understand it because you've seen her grind. And when she says that, you're like, oh yeah, I get it. It makes a lot of sense. And for them to come back again, Omar, I would have made Omar much more complex. In that, I would make him go like, no, we can't have this. How can I have a relationship with you? How can we just be playing around? What if you meet someone else who is much sexier than me, who is better than me, who has more money than me, who rides who is way better? What will happen there? I wish he would have challenged her decision. Anyway, as I said, those are the characters that I had a problem with. So basically, Akina Eric, Akina Nyokabi, Akina Asha, Wendo was another interesting character, his relationship with the brother. But again, that goes back into conditioning because I think their story is more of you can get free condoms in clinics. That's where it all leads to. Conditioning. Reminding people that you can get this from this place, like passing a message. I think that's where the relationship takes, where the story and the acts takes us, because that's how I felt. I wish they did more with the characters, made her more complex, but they did enough with her, with her checklist. I was like, okay, there are things that you're doing with her that are absolutely bold. There are things that you're doing with her our parents wouldn't want us to see. There are things that you're doing with her that you'd want to show it to your child if you are uncomfortable with talking about sex. Yeah, actually, that's the thing about this show. This is the kind of show that a parent who finds it hard to talk about sex with their kids can actually just show them. They can just put this on and they can just watch and talk about what's happening. Because it does a good job of balancing. But then the message is a bit weighty, more than the entertainment factor. But it does some things very boldly and very, very well. Family dynamics, sex in general, because they do some... They subverted a lot of things, like internet porn. They did something very unique with that. Even the take on that, they did something very unique with HIV and the drug, because you're told earlier on, Salatot has it. We don't have to wonder if the person doesn't or doesn't have. That's not the point. That's not the point of the story. There is more to the story than that. I thought that was done very well, whereby you give people the answer, and then now we start dealing with other things. So what happens after you get an infection? Those are the smaller things that I appreciated and can work very well for parents who are uncomfortable with talking about sex. Anyway, so loved all the characters. Odek, the people who surprised me, Wilson Mushemi, as Odek, episode 1 to 5, up to the point where he gets punched. I was like, wow, this kid can actually perform. I thought he was there. Him and Wilson Muchemi and Miriam Bishar, I thought they exist in this show just for marketing. Because they have a following. Bishar is on Fixing the Nation. Wilson Muchemi has a very strong online presence. So why not have them on the show? I mean, it would make sense for marketing, right? But I was surprised. Anifa, Miriam, is great in her performance. Though I complained about her writing, she's great in that performance. Odek, Wilson, he's fantastic. He's so natural because his character feels fluid. He can always snake himself into anything. He is believable as that kid in university who everybody hates but everyone loves in a way. Cool kid, pretends he knows everything, lover boy, but then he meets that one person who totally flips him upside down. Loved it. The only problem I had with him in episode 5 is because the team turned on him and actually punched him. And I'm like, wait, you've already established that this kid can talk himself into or outside anything. He's like a snake. You can't hold him down. So I'd have expected him, when he was cornered, to talk himself outside that situation. But walk out of that situation feeling very frightened because of what he did. It was wrong. But then because Akona Luga, he can talk himself out of that particular situation. So I thought, missed opportunity. But I liked him with Wendo. They have some crazy chemistry. Wendo, wow, that girl is... Okay, let me just put it this way. This show has some really good performance. Direction, yes, because I've seen some people in other productions and they've not been as good as they are in this one. Yeah. So the direction and the performances are great. And again, this feels more like Kenyan because the language that has been picked, you have English, Swahili, and Sheng, and you also have a few mother tongues every now and then. So the language feels ordinary, natural, and it just feels like Kenya, basically. It just feels like Kenya, but now we go into some things that I did not like, that I had a problem with. As much as it feels Kenyan and it looks Kenyan, it feels like this was a foreigner's vision on Kenyan university student that is based on research about Kenya University institution. It doesn't feel like it was conceptualized. The core, the root of this particular show doesn't feel like it was put together by someone who has been in institutions in Kenya. This feels like USIU. I don't know why it feels like USIU, but in the States, established by Americans. It's Kenya, it's about Kenya, it has Kenyan actors, it has Kenyan language. It's extremely Kenyan. You can actually hear it. It's almost Kenyans, but the overall concept, it feels global. It has a global appeal. You know, it feels like something that you can show anyone in a different country and it will make sense. You know, it doesn't feel like 100% Kenyan. And I was like, yeah, it's okay. It's a show. It doesn't have to do some things because you have the freedom to do anything that you want. You have all the freedom to throw in anything you want. And I like that. I like people when people are creative. And I like when people are creative with stories. So as much as it's a bad, I totally get it. Yeah, you need to put it out there for the rest of the world. And it's on YouTube. So you don't need to be stuck here in the country with our own Kenyan way, though they are explicitly shown in this particular show. But there's just that feeling that it feels Kenya, but it does not feel authentically Kenyan. It feels like it's Kenya looked at from a different eye. Which now takes me to, interestingly enough, to the executive producers. I'm sorry I have to say this. Yeah, I am so sorry I have to say this, because the show was produced, they're not Kenyans. So I don't think that this is Kenyan owned. This is just me being petty. I feel that this is not Kenyan owned. It feels like, yeah, it's people from different whatever just coming to produce something here because it makes sense. I don't know why, but it just doesn't feel. I saw that and I was like, this is not a Kenyan production. Okay, let me put it this way. Nawi, fantastic movie. That little girl, I wish that she could be nurtured because she has the potential of becoming one of the biggest actors that we've ever seen because of her performance in that particular movie. Right directors, right people who have her interest in her, they can turn her into a huge star. That is based on her performance in Nawi. But if I was to look at Nawi from a different lens, Nawi is not a Kenyan movie because a lot of the producers, a lot of the director, the cinematographers, the most important people in the production, and are not Kenyans. So for me, I don't consider Nawi to be a Kenyan movie. And that's why I said I'm never going to touch that movie. I'm never going to talk about it because it would look like I'm looking down on a Kenyan story. It's an authentic Kenyan story, yes. They went out there and they got a story about those people and what they go through. But it's not made by Kenyans. And you don't have enough executive producers on that. There's one, but you don't have enough on that show to say that it's owned by Kenyans. I mean, if they win an Oscar, where will that Oscar go? If MTV Shuga Mashariki was to win an Oscar, who would take that Oscar? Who will benefit? Because for me, according to me, the executive producers are the final one. They're the ones who say, this show is going to be particular this way. I want this message. I want this kind of music. This is what you can afford. This is what you're going to be working with. This is the story that I want. Even if the directors and whoever choose what they're going to do, the executive producers have the final word. And they have a heavy influence on what is being put out there. So if MTV Shuga Mashariki is a Kenyan story, Kenyan actors, I think it will only be fair to have Kenyan executive producers. If there are three, they should have two male Kenyan executive producers. just to balance it out. And it's something Kenya Film Commission to start thinking about. You can't have, okay, I'm not saying that you cannot have, you can. Kenya is broke. Yeah, we have a lot of problems with production. We complain about being broke forever. Funding is a problem. So anyone coming from outside to make a movie here, it's fine, you're welcomed. But there should be a rule, Kenya Film Commission, there should be a rule that says that if you have 2 foreign executive producers, you need at least 2 more Kenyan executive producers. And they're not just there for fronts, they're there to actually executive produce. If you have 1 executive producer who's foreign, you have 1 local executive producer who's a Kenyan. They should be rationed, the executive producer, so that you don't have a situation whereby people can just make what they want, take all the talent, take everything that they produced, and go with it, and go make something else somewhere else. I think we all know that show must show. I'm just saying, that's the one thing that threw me off about this show, because my understanding was that this was 100% Kenyan. I went to the set, I saw the people. I saw a lot of young Kenyans actually. And this is a very young Kenyan show. It has a lot of young people. The production is one of the best in Africa. Yeah, this particular group, there's no group like that in Africa. Yes, we have other groups in Kenya who are on the same level. Actually, we don't have, I don't want to go into that. We have some of the best producers and directors in Africa, in Kenya, right now. And so this is just a part of that group. And they did a fantastic job with this. So I thought it was going to be a Kenyan production. You know, if is MTV Shuga Mashariki owned by Kenyans? Yes, it's based in Kenya. It's a story about Kenyan. There's a lot of Swahili. There's a lot of this different language. But if the executive producers are these 3 people that, okay, let me just focus on the show. My problem is that it had, number 1, it was being hypocritical, whereby you talk about a show being 50% women, 50% men, but the most important people, the executive producers, are 100% women and they're 100% foreign. So for me, that was a bit of a problem, because those are the most important people. Those are the decision makers. Those are the people who decide which direction this show goes. So for me, that was a problem. And I can't keep quiet about it, I'm sorry. So the other thing that I had a problem with was the sound design. The music is fantastic, it's used very, very well. But the sound design is not there, it does not exist. The ADR is, it's so good. It's good, it's warm, and it's clear. So that I enjoyed. But the sound design, you know, those smaller things, noises, environmental noises. If you're in a restaurant, what do you hear? If you are in a dorm room, what are the ambient noises? You don't hear them. It's just too clean. It's clean ADR, it's clean music. I'm not saying that it does not work. It does. But for me, sometimes, I want to hear everything. You know, I want to hear people walking on the hallway. I want to hear people in the restaurant. I want to hear people in a market. There's a scene in a market where you can hear the aunt and the Salaton's sister talk very clearly, and you don't hear environmental noises. It's a market. Market's supposed to be noisy. So I thought that was a bit of a problem. The editing could be a problem to some people. Yeah, the editing could be a problem to a few, because it's very fast-paced. As I said, I enjoyed every bit of the editing. I love this pacing. I was like, yes, this is how you pace a show. And I loved the final episode. Anyway, I'll keep bragging about the last episode is perfect. Apart from that, episode 5, yeah, I talked about it. Episode 5, the last 8 to 10 minutes, something happened there. There's something missing there. There's a lot missing. And as you go into episode 6, there's something missing with the edit. There are things that pop up and you're like, and there are things that pop up later on and they're mentioned and you're like, I thought I didn't see that. Like the shoulder thing. Did I miss something? Ama, did Salaton get hurt in the protest? Where did that happen? Anyway. So there are those smaller things that just pop up for me that I struggled with. Apart from that, this is an excellent show. Now, do I still believe that it was necessary to have Eduji and Jennifer Gatero in this? Yes! Yes! You needed Eduji with the tension. You know why? This show, by the way, as I said, 4 4.5 out of 5. It's a very, very good show. It's up there for me. But each episode has its own elevation and dips in terms of tension. You don't have, as a unit, episode 1 to 8, you don't have moments of tension. It's something that they did well with the Penguin movie, whereby you start easy, but by the 5th to the, was it the 10th episode or the 8th episode, you cannot sit down. If you're binging it, you cannot sit down. You're ready to skip the next because it has you hooked. Because of the sequence of events are so well planned that tension just keeps rising. And I don't mean episodically, no. Each episode from episode 6 is so tight. Episode 5, I think, yeah. Well, when you go back to some other character, each episode is so tight that you cannot look away. It's so well done that the tension with the last 3 or 4 episodes are perfect on, they're just on a different level. You feel the tension. For this one, you have a moment in episode 5 where it just spikes, that last moment, it spikes and then it goes back. And then with Nyakobi's incident, you have another spike. And then with episode 8 now, you have that one huge spike, which I absolutely loved. So you have, it's very irregular in terms of tension because each episode is treated individually, which goes into something else that is not like, name your goddamn episodes. If you don't name your goddamn episode, in my mind, you absolutely did not know what you are doing when you were cutting your production. It was one thing, and it was just cut into pieces, and it was presented. Name your episode. It's much better. I can reference episode 5 and say the protest. Was it called slut parade? The slut parade. Yeah. Just name your episodes. It's much more easier. I know it's not a tradition in Shuga, but it helps a lot. Anyway, as I was saying, there are those spikes within each episode. And if you look at a movie like On Air, the way those chapters are treated and the way tension just rises from the first chapter to the last chapter, it's done exceptionally well. Here, it suffers from that. Because you feel a spike in episode 5, you feel a spike in episode 8, and now you feel a bigger spike in episode 8, the last episode. But it's not consistent. You don't have that graph. You don't have that graph going up. You don't have that graph going up. It's just everywhere, spiking everywhere. So I thought Edu would be there for that. And again, for some very, very creative decisions that were missed, especially with Nyakobi, a relationship with Asha. There were moments that were missed that I thought would be handled better by Edu in terms of just making that relationship uncomfortable and then switch to comfortable. I've seen On Air, I saw how he treated 2 characters in one small space. I thought he would do a better job with that. Now, don't get me wrong. I still maintain Akina Likarion, June, and MK are there on the top of the food chain in terms of direction. And they did a great job with this. I'm not saying they did a shitty job with it. No, they did not. The second thing, Jennifer Gatero, the swankiness of this institution, because it feels swanky, but it still feels very grounded. But I would have wanted it to feel slightly swanky. I would have slightly wanted to see like a few cool kids, like the ones that, you know, the kind of SIU kids, the ones that you don't usually see on a normal day. So basically that's it. Yes, Edu would have done a lot with this, especially in the conceptualization stage. I was happy to see Natasha Likemani having written an episode. It's always good to see, because even that episode apart, that's what I'm saying. I would really like to see the full episode 5. Yeah, because there are things that are missing. There are things that are missing that are integral to the story. I would have really wanted to see the full episode 5. But generally, this is a great show. This is an awesome show, man. It's a 4.5 out of 5. Episode 8 is perfect. The opening episode is perfect. The what are they called? The title card. Fantastic job. These characters are complex. I think they are very well directed. And the directors, again, it solidifies the fact that these directors are some of the best that we have in this particular continent. The pacing is amazing. The music is good. The performances, as I said, on deck, fantastic. Nyakobi, fantastic. Asha, fantastic. Though I wish they would have done more with that particular character. I never talked about Dada. Dada is given such an interesting arc in this. And actually, I hope that will be now the anchor of the second season, because her relationship with Eric, and that's what I talk about, subverting internet porn. Yeah, they did something very, very cool. And they did, because there's a way that we look at that, whatever will be presented, there's a way that we look at it and see it from a very dark angle. And they did something different with that, which was absolutely amazing. That's why I'm saying this show, that this is a very, very good show. It's definitely worth your time. It's I want to see season 2. I would want to see them do more with Anifa. If you're thinking about the first season of Shuga, there are a lot of callbacks to the first season. I Love Nairobi is still there. The mic is still there, but now it's more of podcast rather than radio. So yeah, generally, fantastic show, very contained, good looking, perfectly paced, and very, very entertaining. For those people who are complaining about episode 5 with the dudes on that's just a snippet. That's just a small part, which I wish to know what happened before she lifts that placard, because I don't get what happened before that. So outside that, fantastic show. You guys did a fantastic job. I cannot wait to see season 2. Have you seen the show? What did you think about it? Or did you like Nyakobi? How many people have a crush on Asha or Nyakobi or Anifa? Because I remember I remember the first Shuga, I had a crush on many other actors during that period. Are there characters that you have a crush on? Are there performances that still stuck with you? Or I want to see, what did you think about Martin Gotho as Eric? Because as I said, Zodiac, episode 8, fantastic, man. Episode 8 is fantastic. I loved it. That Eric, Salaton, Dada, and then Salaton's sister at the end. Wow, that's fantastic. If you're worried about the messaging in this, it's still there, but the entertaining factor about this particular show outweighs the messaging, because the messaging is what kills this particular show. It's that -5 that I took away from the show, because it's on your face and Asha has to do a lot of the delivery, but generally there's a lot better entertaining things about the show more than the messaging. The messaging is still there, but they did more, especially the direction. They did more with these characters that makes them interesting and makes it a much easier digestible film for the family. If you're a parent and you have teenagers, young adults, and you have a hard time talking about sex and everything around sex, this would be a great show as a supplement for you when you're talking to them about sex. Everything around it. It will make it much easier for you, because they do that very, very, very well. So basically that's it. Remember to always watch what you enjoy and enjoy what you watch. I shall see you on the next one. Adios.